Sup nerds, Tom here to talk to y'all about one of my biggest surprises of the year so far, because Creature Comforts is probably my new favorite kids table board game. Now, I like a lot of the games that Kids Table Board Game puts out. They're light, they're usually relatively quick, and I mean, they're meant to be played with kids, but they're supposed to be complex enough to where adults can still have a good time, and that has never been more the case than with this, except maybe Wreck Raiders, which, I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell if this is my favorite or if Wreck Raiders is my favorite, but they're both pretty great intro-y worker placement-y games. And now I say worker placement, but this feels a bit more like programming. So you do have workers, and there are spots you put them on the board, but all players place them simultaneously, and like if I put my worker on a spot, it is in no way stopping you from putting your worker on the spot. Now, the worker being there is not what activates the spot. Dice are. You have to have dice of whatever number is required. Some spots don't require any specific number, but some require a specific number or a range or like a set or, whatever. And you have to place those dice there in order to trigger the spot. Now, you have 2 dice in your color and then there's 4 white dice. You will roll the 2 dice of your color, then place all the workers out there, and then roll the 4 white dice. So then after you put the workers out there, then all of the values on the dice that you're able to work with. So there is a decent amount of luck in sort of guessing or crossing your fingers and hoping that the value that you want gets rolled. I mean, you can look at your own dice and you can say, well, I have a 2 and a 4, so if a 3 gets rolled, hopefully, then I can have this 3 dice sequence so I can trigger this spot. But actually, if you have any spots that don't trigger, like if you put a worker on a spot and then you ultimately realize that you don't have any dice that you can put there, or maybe you just don't want to, then you can get a lesson learned token, which is a modifier to be used in later rounds. And most of the actions of the game are pretty straightforward in terms of worker placement or just Euro games in general. You're gaining resources and spending them for cards. There's like 2 different types of cards. There are these comforts that are probably the biggest way to get points. And then there's these square cards, I think they're improvements or something, that will give you smaller points, but they will give you special benefits, or sometimes they are also worker placement-y spots for other players to go to. And that's mostly it. But there are, even on top of that, there's a couple extra little twists. So first of all, there are a ton of different resource types. Some are more common than others, and like books and coins are like more valuable. They're rarer, they're harder to get, and they are actually worth points at the end of the game. All the other resources are like worth like a third of a point. And there are tons of spots that actually change throughout the game. There's a river spot where the little thing rotates. There are these spring and meadow cards at the top that change every round, and a traveler, which I think is the coolest aspect of this game. That traveler changes the dynamics in the round kind of a lot. There could be like a constant game effect that's going on. The spots themselves are pretty different. Sometimes it could be like an instant game effect where you have to place another player's worker, or you have to give another player a resource immediately. There's a decent amount of harder level stuff in here for a game that's ultimately aimed at like a younger audience. Now, I have tons of nieces and nephews and I play games with them a lot. I can tell that there's, some of them are going to get this game pretty easily. Some are going to need a round or 2 or 3 and like a lot of help to really get through it, because there's a lot of concepts here. As much as this is for younger audiences, I don't know, you might want to almost intro them into a different worker placement game first, so they get the idea of placing workers, activating spots, gaining resources, and spending them for points. And then this is like a second level up. Well, seems like a weird concept for a game that is ultimately still an intro game, but I really like it. I like it a lot. You have either 8 rounds or 6 rounds. I think it's great at both lengths. I think for a lower player count, you're going to want to play 8 rounds. If you're playing with 4 or 5 players, maybe just the 6 rounds is enough. It's really easy, but like with a surprising amount of tough choices. And I think the tons and tons of resources is a big part of it. Like, you'll look at these cards in your hand and be like, wow, I need 1 of this, 1 of that, 2 of this, and 1 of this. But that's, 4 of the 8 resources available. So how can I get all of those? There's ways you can trade resources and everything. I'm overall pretty floored. Like, again, there's a lot of luck with dice, and, you got to place all your workers out there and cross your fingers. The way the cards come out, sometimes you could just have, oh, this card works well with that card and gets me bonus points. I'm going to pick up both those cards right now. I think the art is really cute. I think the component quality is surprisingly good. And actually, I don't even have none of these pictures. This isn't the Kickstarter version. There's slightly better components in the Kickstarter version, which ultimately I don't even really think you need. At this point, I don't really care about deluxe components much anymore. I mean, I kind of do. Like I like them when I have them, but I would never have the retail version of a game and be like, oh shucks, I wish I had the better. I'm always just kind of like, it's fine, whatever. If you find it, then go get it. But I don't care. So, do I recommend this game? Absolutely, I do. For pretty much every age range, with, the only real complaints I have is that, sure, there's a decent amount of luck, okay, and you may think you can play this game with a younger crowd than probably can. Like, it says 8 on the box, and yeah, maybe some 8-year-olds can get it, but there might be probably 8-year-olds who have already played a couple of games and already have a few concepts under their belt, thinking about all the different resource types and how the traveler works, and hoping that the dice come up and all that kind of stuff might be a little bit overwhelming. This isn't necessarily baby's first game, but it's still great to play with kids who enjoy games. But yeah, that about wraps it up. Definitely check out Game Toppers, link in the description down below to buy this game. Definitely do it. Bye. So the question is, do I recommend this game? And oh boy, do I. I don't want to sound like that.